Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. Join us for this all-access pass backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live event industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to incredible guests who journey with us as we dive deep into the world of venues, tours, festivals, and everything in between. Grab your laminate and meet us in Venueland.
Today's adventure, of course, taking us to Miami via Seattle. We're doing all kinds of crazy stuff today, but it's very early in the morning here. We're sounding a little rough because it was a late night here after opening night when we were recording this. But Paul, would you like to introduce our guest? Because as you have said to me, this is your white whale.
We're setting the bar too high.
No pressure.
It is one of my white whale guests. But we're joined by Liz Roca. And we're happy to have her join us. We've known Liz for many years through EAMC, and figured we had to corner her in person at a conference. That's the only way we're gonna land her because she's a busy person.
So many people know Liz from her 18 plus years at American Airlines Arena in Miami, but she's had some really interesting adventures that we're excited to share with you. So with no further ado, Liz, thanks for getting up early this morning.
Hi, guys. Thank you for making me wake up early and finally cornering me into doing this. Sorry. It's not that I didn't want to do it. It's just, my crazy schedule, but I'm happy to be here and happy to do this for you guys.
You are running crazy. So your current role, you are the director of tour marketing at United Talent Agency.
Correct.
But what does that mean? What is it? What are you doing?
What does that mean? I actually took the job and had no idea what that meant. But
so many of us have done that.
Yeah, I took the job and I was like, now what? So I took the job after being out of work for a little bit over a year because of the pandemic, as we all know. So basically UTA is agency that represents, different clients and, Bad Bunny, Karol G, they're growing their Latin space. Represent Lizzo, Florence and the Machine, the list goes on and on, but they're really trying to grow their Latin space and, have two of the hottest Latin clients right now, which is Bad Bunny and Karol G. And so they brought me on to help with those tours and basically do the entire marketing for the tours, whether it's North America, Latin America. So I work either with a promoter, if it's like a Live Nation, tour, or individual promoters, if it's just 26 shows with 26 different promoters. I love it. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I think that you just encapsulated everyone that works in live events. I love it. It's
a lot. ...
A lot. But I love it.
It's just a lot to keep, a lot of moving parts. You're dealing with a lot of different people, a lot of egos.
Sure.
Managing expectations. But I love dealing with people. I miss that aspect of it. It is a lot.
Are you finding, I think there's not a ton of people that have touched so many different sides of the industry, being on the venue side, being on the promoter side. Are you finding that? I'm sure that's a big advantage, right? You probably have a unique perspective that maybe some of your coworkers don't have, where when you're reaching out to these promoters or you're working with the venues or you're proving things, you're kind of, their perspective a bit more.
Yeah. Like I'm in their head.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, you are.
I lived it.
I know what you're thinking when I make this ask.
But yeah. And then I try to be sensitive to that. And it's challenging because I still see myself as a venue marketer.
Sure.
I did it for almost 19 years and I loved it. But it's tough because I'm very appreciative of what they're doing. I kind of understand, obviously, the position I'm putting them in. I always like to give them the benefit of the doubt because I remember sitting there not too long ago. But then on the agency side, it's like, now I have a different role. I have a different hat, and I need to ask for certain things. And so I'm still kind of caught in the middle between being a venue marketer and now being an agency tour marketer. But I feel it's an advantage because I do know what I can ask them for. I do know what they're capable of. And I remember when I was a venue marketer getting pushed, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, in a good way, just pushing myself to do more outside of like what the venue, the cookie cutter model.
Right. Yes.
And
often that comes from that direction. You're
100%.
kind of within your own venue world, and then you get this request or something, and you're like, oh man, this is a challenge. But then everyone pulls it off, and it's like, oh man, like I now have this in my toolbox. I can use it for the next show or whatever that is.
And it helped us. And of course, at the time it would annoy me, but it helped me grow, and it helped me, I remember working with, and it made me better, Michelle Bernstein, and her putting so much pressure on the venue, and we were a competing venue with, at the time, the Arena and Sunrise. It's gone through so many names, but so we really had to think outside the box, and how do we stand out so that the shows could come to us and not to the arena 45 minutes away in the suburbs. So, and actually Eric Brescher and I were talking about that yesterday. But yeah, so I love it. And it's hard because, again, I want to be sensitive to what, their challenges are, but at the same time, now I'm working for the client and I know what they can do. So I want them to do it for me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
On the flip of that, now that you're in your seat, what do you think, like a venue marketer, maybe that you didn't know being on the venue side? Is there anything that you recommend to people on the venue side that, from your perspective you're in now, like, oh, okay, I see this is always a challenge that hangs people up, but I've been there. These are the type of requests. Like, are there any tips or anything you try to give them?
I mean, I think just, again, going back to this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what the arena can offer you, no, like there's so much more. You have to like hone in on who the client is. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? And try to make it personal to that artist.
Sure.
And that's how that venue is going to stand out. That's how the tour is going to stand out. Even within a tour, there's certain venues that I'm like, oh, I loved that show and I didn't love this show. And it's not because of the show. It's just because of the experience at the venue.
Right.
Whether it's any marketing, big looks, like in Miami, we have a lot of big murals, like in Wynwood and those type of areas. But a lot of places, New York will do them sometimes, but inventory is a little bit tight. From an artist perspective, it's just something different. It's not, your typical, now everything's digital. So this is something that stands out. So, anything that your city can offer that other cities don't offer. And then also we took a lot of pride when we were at the arena of just in-house signage and just hospitality. And, when the artist gets there, like, wow, remembering our venue, it's not just the white or gray brick walls that you're walking, down. So I think anything that can make, just do something and take pride in it, anything local, like what's the local food, or, find out what your artist likes. And that doesn't necessarily help with the marketing of the show, but it does help when they're coming back. Like, hey, we loved the people there. They were good to work with. It was a positive experience.
Yeah.
So Liz, it's funny because, you've been coming to EAMC, now EVMC, for so many years. And, you've seen there seems to usually be a hot topic that everybody's talking about. Sometimes it's that new thing, Instagram or TikTok or whatever, the flavor of the moment that people are really excited about, that ends up becoming just what we do every day. But the Latin shows seems to be, we've talked about it for years, but right now, I've seen it in a room with, 6 people attending at a round table, but now it seems to be one of the hottest topics in the live event industry of how people in Boise, Idaho are going to market Latin shows and Latin artists, and how people in Columbus, Ohio are going to do it, and everywhere all around the country. Why is this the moment?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So it's the first year that EAMC has the panel, right? The Latin.
Yeah, like a dedicated Latin panel.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's something that's big, that is finally getting its own platform. Obviously, I'm from Miami, so for us, it's the norm, right?
Yeah, right. It's been,
Gloria Estefan, freaking Miami Sound Machine and Conga, everybody that wasn't Latin was like, wow, what is that sound? So for me, it's hard to put myself outside of that because it's all I've ever known. But yeah, now being on the agency side again and routing our tours to places that I never imagined would be listening to Latin music.
Yeah.
And not only that, but selling out.
Sure.
Pitbull just did a 56 city tour last year. I love Pitbull, Mr. 305, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, he's been at it for so long.
Yeah.
And in my age group, and I'm full disclosure, I'm going to be 50, but now he had like a resurgence with like teenagers.
Yeah.
So you saw all these sellouts in all across America. And then you saw all these young kids with the bald caps on.
Yeah.
That was a thing. My son's asking me for tickets to go see Pitbull. I mean, we listen to everything at the house, but I'm like, really, Pitbull? You want to go? Yeah, mom. Mr. 305. Okay, Mr. Worldwide. So it's amazing and it's awesome. And I mean, obviously, it's personal to me, so I love to share it with the world and that everyone's like, listening to this music and loving it. And so so I just think the moment, I think streaming, I think just obviously not listening to whatever's on the radio like back in the day, you can really just open up yourself to just all different types of music just with a click of a button. So I think that's been the big thing, just digital and just being able to access any type of music from anywhere, any city, any county. So I think that's a big reason why we're here.
I think too, like so many different industries beyond live events, maybe during that time of pandemic where everyone's trying to kill time at home, sometimes we don't always have that much time to listen to music as much as we'd like. So we're kind of, okay, we're going to go back to our favorite bands. We're going to, maybe listen to a new song here or there. But I think when we did have this downtime, maybe that is also what, threw gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people are like, I've got all this time. I'm doing chores around the house, whatever it is. Oh, I should listen to this genre over here. My friend's doing this. Not to mention the whole advent of TikTok, which while that broke artists, I think it also introduced whole genres.
100%.
People didn't even listen to this. And then they discovered, even if they didn't care for that artist they saw on TikTok, they were like, oh, maybe I really like this genre now, which I didn't even know. We've got whole legions of people that are interested in shanty songs, I feel like, on TikTok. But I think maybe that is part of it too, is it's, it is this exposure through Spotify or all the different streamers platforms. But it's I think like as with everything in the last 2 or 3 years, it's just everything has been
and TikTok was huge for Pitbull. And I think everybody just like, I think they needed that energy that he brings, because if you go to his shows, they're like nothing else.
He does bring the energy.
Freaking party. And now I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you've seen him, and he's
reminds me of the old Hammer shows, Hammer back in the day when he would bring a party on stage.
100%, yeah. And now he's doing the trilogy tour with Enrique and Ricky, and that's going to be a freaking party.
Huge.
Yeah, So like 3 huge Latin artists. Again, all the tours. There's so many Latin tours out now, and there's Romeo Santos. There's Karol G. She's just adding stadiums now. So I think it's just it's also a different type of music. I think it's very, for lack of a better word, passionate. It's like people feel it in their bones. At least I do. And I think that it just transcends everything, and everybody's kind of like looking for just to feel good and a good time. And like you said, with the pandemic, it was one of the many things that we started doing, which was listening to different types of music. We had more time. We changed so many habits during the pandemic. And I think just being open to like different things just because you had the time was a huge positive thing that came out of it.
Liz, when we talk about Latin artists, so often the question that we talk about is, how do we find that Latin audience? How do we market to that Latin audience? But I'm sure one of the things you're seeing is that crossover appeal, right? So what percentage of the audience at a Bad Bunny show is not necessarily Latin? You know what I mean? So is there reaching that crossover to a little bit of everybody?
Stay tuned to our panel tomorrow on the rise of Latin music.
Yeah, right.
And all secrets will be disclosed. No, honestly, I don't have exact numbers, but again, in places like Miami, you're looking at stadiums and it's probably like 90% Latin.
Okay,
just because it's Miami.
Sure.
But then, you're going to other places and I would think 60-40, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
Bad Bunny, it's just a phenomenon. Like just the sponsorships, the brands that want to work with him.
Right.
He's on Vogue. He's doing Cheetos. He's doing Adidas. He's doing movies with Brad Pitt. He's just all over the place, and he's a force.
He's having a moment.
It's one thing smart too for like these artists to kind of break into that arena size, but man, talk about Bad Bunny and Carol G, but some of stadium
Guys,
tours,
stadiums is tough.
stadiums
Stadiums
is
is
a
tough,
lot
and
of
we're doing
seats to
doubles.
fill. But to do doubles on some
Yeah.
of those shows, like that is bonkers. That's so wild.
Listen, we believe in our clients, and we know that they're rock stars, but yeah, it's nice that everybody agrees with us and they're buying the tickets and they're going to the stadiums and they're just having the time of their lives.
And the speed of that growth, normally you would see, of course, like, I don't want to say of course, because a lot of artists can't do it, but like Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift has been around forever.
Opening so I remember coming to the venue as an opening act.
Yeah, and then it's
coming
like
back as a single
arena
night
circuit,
that
6 or 7 tours, and then now done multiple stadium tours, and then also has just this bevy of albums. And so to jump as fast as they are to the stadium tour is really kind of incredible.
And they're staying power.
Yeah. Because
anybody can just blow up and then just as quickly as they blew up, just kind of like go away.
Yeah.
But I think, again, it's that connection. There could be artists that are more talented. There's artists that could, but I think it's these guys like a Taylor, Carol G, Bad Bunny. They work so hard. Like, this is not an easy job that they're doing. Like, our job is not easy, but they're out there every single night. I mean, that's exhausting. And they're just putting it out there. I mean, Taylor Swift freaking performed for 3.5 hours in the rain. I mean,
right.
How can you not love her?
Right.
So, and it's just about the connection. I think that's what sells tickets. Anybody could be a good performer.
But that connection.
That you feel like that person is truly like out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what sells tickets, I think. Like Taylor Swift, like, she's just an advocate for so many good things and, so many positive things. And she's such a great role model that I feel like kids nowadays, and even adults, like, who can't look up to Taylor Swift? I don't care that I'm 50. I admire the hell out of her.
Yeah.
Her work ethic, like,
and the connection is so important too for those last row seats in a stadium, because you are not, you're seeing a little ant dance on the stage, but if you're there and you feel like they're singing to you and you see them putting their heart into it, then you're like, sure, I'll sit in the top row because I want to be at the experience.
I just want to be there.
I want to be there.
I mean, guys, did you see in Nashville, the bridge?
Oh, insane.
People were out there in the bridge, just wanting to, like, just a piece of it, just to listen and just kind of be in that moment and say they were there. You don't get that with anything else except for like music, live music, and not everybody. And I had this conversation yesterday, I don't remember with who, but not every artist translates into an entertainer and like a good concert performer. Yeah. So I've seen artists that I love on the radio. I've seen them live and I've kind of left a little. So not everybody has that like ability to connect.
Transcend.
And I think that's a big part of it, of why they stay with, on top for such a long time.
Yeah.
Liz, so, obviously staying on top for a long time is the name of your game as well, right? So what do you do when, we talked about,
Does that mean I'm old?
I'm right there with you, my friend. Hey, so, but
yeah, you dinosaur, you've been around for a long time.
Yeah. What's a day like for you? Are you going to the office? We know kind of what your job description is, but you wake up on I know every day is a little bit different, mm-hmm. but what are you doing in an average day in your position?
Well, I work remotely now because our offices are LA, New York, Nashville. We have an office in Atlanta, and London. So when I got hired, they knew they used to have an office in Miami and they closed that right before the pandemic, I believe. So, I told them, listen, one thing I can't do, and full disclosure, because at this age, as you pointed out, I've been around for a long time. So I don't, there's no point in trying to be somebody that you're not, or promising to do something that you're not going to do. That's hard to kind of keep up long term. So I was like, full disclosure, so grateful for the call and the opportunity, but I'm not relocating. My life is in Miami. Born and raised. My kids were still in high school at the time. So I work remotely. So it's not the typical job where you have to go into an office and I think typical doesn't exist anymore, but I try to keep a routine just because I need it for myself. I would love to say I'm self-motivated, but I'm really not. So I need to really, keep that routine. So I'll wake up at a certain time, my kids get me up, George, like just a bevy of noise and things happening in the house that even though I wanted to sleep until 10, I couldn't. And then, I just, make my coffee and just, I do like to take a minute because once I'm on the computer, it's crazy. Like people would tell me before when they work from home, oh my God, it's worse. You're working all the time. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like you're in your house. You can be in pajamas. Sure. And if I make the mistake of checking my computer or checking my phone, while I'm in bed,
It's your go. You kick in. It's you go to
I'm
go
done.
mode. Yep.
Like I'm literally in
that.
pajamas the entire day.
Right.
And my mom's come to my house. She lives very close and doesn't give me a heads up and thinks I'm a complete loser because she does not understand that that I am actually working.
Right.
So she's like, "Is this your new life?" And you're in pajamas all day and slippers. They look really disgusting. So she shames me into getting dressed in the morning. I think if my mom comes in the middle of the day and I'm in pajamas, I'm almost 50 and I'm still scared of her. So I put on my earrings. I, try to put on something. Even coming to the conference, I'm like, I only have like loungewear, like, or like going out Miami clothes. It doesn't work here.
Sure, a little different.
So I just try to stay in my routine. I try not to check my computer until I've actually like showered or, I can lie and say I try to take a walk, but I never do.
Although, anyone who follows you on Instagram sees that you are very active. You guys do get out. At least it feels like that. You're like out along the beach. You're meeting up with tons of friends. You're out on boats,
Yeah. Well, listen, and it's hard, as you guys all know, like this job could literally take over your entire life.
Sure.
And I've seen it happen to a lot of people. I mean, any job really, but ours is just, when I was at the arena, it was 18 and a half years of working nights and weekends. But even if you're tired, you have to make time for like your personal life.
Yeah.
Whether you're married, whether you're not married, whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids. I mean, you have to just find stuff like
you are among the best at that.
Thank you. I work at it. Like it sounds weird and I'm exhausted. Like my hair lady is like one of my oldest friends. And she's like, I go do my hair and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm not doing anything this week. And she's like, okay, I'll see you on the gram. Like lies. I'm like, I hope nobody calls me. She's like, I hope they do because you don't know how to say no. I just listen, you have to enjoy life. Life is short.
Sure.
I've experienced, a lot of tragedy. I mean, a lot of friends have passed their kids. I've seen young kids, friends of, my boys, die in boating accidents, or my dad passed away at 42. I want to say I'm not affected. Like it's not something that has, I've let it, change who I am, but it's just made me appreciate life. Nothing is promised, and I have a great group of friends. My boys are healthy, my husband, my family. So I enjoy life. And yes, as much as I enjoy my job, I also, there's other things out there that, you want to do. And thankfully I have a group of friends who just, if they, I'm not thinking about it, they're thinking about it, and we're dragging each other out. And, during the pandemic, you mentioned being out on the beach. Like I'm grateful to live close to like water. And that's like my happy place.
Sure.
We would ride bike to Key Biscayne. And, if I saw that body of water, like I was already in a different headspace.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that I'm able to do that. But, just ride bike. Now I don't have time to, we're like, why don't we ride bike anymore? Well, because their cars, they're going to kill you. Like they're going to die in Miami riding bike. So, unfortunately, but you have to just, it's the kids. It's, we made friends with the parents. It's, going out. And that's why I love Miami. And why I say my husband would love to move. Because poor guy, I drag him everywhere. He's very happy this week. I'm not there. He's like, nobody call me,
As a side note, you need to go, this is permission, although probably not mine to give, to go creep Liz's Instagram and look at the Halloween costume combos between her and her husband. I mean, these are legendary costumes. And
I force all my friends now. Like they all hate me.
You have like boxes of Halloween costumes. Because now we have to do
group costumes.
You got to do group costumes. It's a whole theme. It's a whole situation.
It's fun. It's fun, guys. Life is short. You have to enjoy it. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. And that's just maybe my almost 50 years of experience talking. But, just live with intent, right?
Yeah.
Like,
amen.
You have to like just, shit happens, life happens, but you also have to like live with a purpose of what it is you want at the end of the day.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
We don't always start off knowing what we want. And, you graduate, from college in Florida and your first, you spent a little run of time in the print business, right?
I did. I worked for 6.5 years at the Miami Herald Publishing Company.
And what were you doing?
Advertising.
Yeah.
Advertising sales. So my father-in-law, they call him a legend because he worked at the Miami Herald for 36 years. Oh, wow. And I actually worked. See, this is why I say live with intent. Like I saw a lot of people like just kind of floating and going to college, and sometimes I wish I was a little bit more, I had been more irresponsible, but here we are. But I was like, I'm going to work. in something that I kind of want to, what I'm studying. So when I graduate, I have the work experience as well as the degree. And yeah, so my father-in-law got a bunch of us jobs in sales. Well, we started customer service, really, like answering like newspapers.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Hanging up on people.
And
like
you're showing up on time, right? And
Yeah.
you're paying your dues.
I had a sense of duty. My father had passed away, at 42. My mom was 40. I'm an only child. So I kind of had that sense of like responsibility. I didn't want to put more burden on my mom financially.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to make money. And I was always very responsible, like self-inflicted, maybe. Like my mom always told me, don't work. Because once you start working, you can never stop. And truer words have never been spoken.
Right. Yeah.
Because I've been working since I was 17 years old. But yeah, I worked for 6.5 years in the Miami Herald, started in customer service. That was a freaking blast. Like it was just I made lifelong friends there
Print was, let's make it, print was the king at that point.
It was amazing.
Right? Yeah.
And then we developed the digital, like while I was there, like MiamiHerald.com. And I started selling, I graduated from customer service to advertising sales for like classified advertising. And I don't think I ever did the obituaries, but I did do garage sales and then graduated to the digital side of advertising. So it was a nice progression and really enjoyed it. And I did it for 6.5 years, but I knew that wasn't like my passion and what I wanted to do forever. And then funny story, Eric Brescher, that we all know.
Sure.
And I love and adore. And so I randomly saw, I want to say an ad in the paper, for this marketing manager position at the arena that had just opened, American Airlines Arena. So I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I love sports. I love live music. How awesome would that be? So I just send my resume in, don't hear back for months. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then I get a call and it's to set up this interview. So I go on the interview and it's funny because the arena had just been open. I want to say 9 months. I had been to a few events there. And, typical Miami fashion, they wanted to like do a flame, like the seats, like if you look at them, it was like red, orange, yellow.
Yeah.
And it was the first arena of its kind. It was like exposed, like concrete and like the pipes and then the seats were like, and I had been to the traditional arena that looks like a convention center or a hotel. So I saw that and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, and then I go to the bowl and this yellow seats are already dirty. And I'm like, this is me as a spectator, just analyzing.
9 months in and it's already got some. Yeah.
And I would talk to Jordan. I would be like, this is kind of gross. I don't know how I feel about this. So I'm sitting there in my interview with Eric, fast forward like months later. And we go through the normal process of an interview. And then he tells me, so, this has been great. So nice to meet you. Let me just ask you, how do you feel about the arena, the aesthetics of it, And I just fucking diarrhea the mouth.
Yeah.
I was like, well, actually, now that you mention it, whose idea was it to put yellow seats and, this whole concrete exposed whatever.
That's a gutsy move, by the way.
You're speaking for the people,
though,
this
right? Is who I am.
That's awesome. That's why.
Crazy brain. I'm like not even thinking to lie and tell this guy it's the most beautiful building I've ever walked into. And then I realized what I was doing. I was like, well, but you're on the water and like I'm
turning around.
What other venue can you walk outside and look at the Miami skyline? And he's like, okay, thank you, whatever. So wrapped it up. I'm like, oh, I'm fucked. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
Great. And I was just getting excited about this. So I'm on my way home. George calls me, my husband. He's like, babe, how did it go? And I was like, it was great. Until what? I'm like, until they asked me what I thought about the arena. He was like, what did you say? Because we had been talking. It's so funny. It had been such a conversation. He's like, oh no. Well, babe, you know what? It's who you are. You told the truth. What are you going to do? It is what it is. You still have a job. And then sure enough, Eric called me. And to this day, we'll say the story and laugh. He's like, you're the only person. I asked that question to every applicant. Yeah. You're the only person who told us what we already knew about the seats, which they ended up changing.
And shot straight too.
And
everyone else sugarcoated everything too much.
And you send a handwritten thank you note. Right?
Amen.
Like who does that?
Amen.
But and now, maybe you won't send a thank you note, you'll send an email, but it's just that extra step. And it's not something my mom always told me, send thank you notes. Till this day, I make my kids, they won't send a thank you note now, but they'll text if they get gifts or they'll pick up the phone. Like Nick just graduated, and our friends and family were so generous. And I said, Nick, don't forget, text everyone. He's like, no, mom, I'm going to call them.
Which is my big deal.
Yeah, for them, it's a big deal.
For the generation.
So he's like, I'm going to call them, mom. So it's just, going that extra step. And again, not faking it. It should be something, but it's just programming yourself to do certain things and just,
So from that, that little conversation, that you're sitting that the two of you and Eric having that open conversation lead to the next nearly 2 decades.
He changed my life.
2 decades of your life in arena marketing.
Yeah, he changed my life. I mean, I get emotional because I love this industry. I've met such amazing friends here, and we might not see each other all the time, and maybe it's once a year, but honestly, these connections, who else gets us and what we do more than each other? And Eric's like my brother. I mean, he was my work husband. George, literally, we'd be on even now, we're on the couch talking, and George, and I'm talking to him, and George is like, get a room, just get go away, So he changed my life. I love this industry, and all the people in it, and he gave me my opportunity that I don't think anybody, I don't know what would have happened, where I would have ended up, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess I do think one of the really interesting things about your path is, we kind of mentioned this, but 2020 happens. Before that, though, you decide to leave the venue and go on the promoter side.
Oh, right.
But then, you could tell us about choosing to go on the promoter side. But then, of course, also,
good time to make that change.
Yeah. And we're ironically in hotel room 2020 right now. They gave it to me, and the person slid from the desk. They slid over, and she said, "Oh, it's my favorite year." And I looked at it and gave the biggest eye roll ever. And I was like, of course I get the 2020 room.
We are in room 2020.
That's
room
funny.
2020.
I didn't even realize that.
But then, that brings a lot of changes, for all of us, and myself included. And, you left the industry for a bit, and, but what was that experience like?
I was forced to leave the industry, many of us. So like you said, it started before that, because I left the arena, looking for bigger and better. Maybe not better, just different, because honestly, I have not one bad thing to say about my 18 and a half years at the arena. It was the best time of my life, and it was everything. And I loved it until I didn't love it anymore, which wasn't a long time, just because I don't have a high threshold for not being happy.
Sure.
And, it was just a lot of nights. It was a lot of weekends. I had been there for such a long time, and there really wasn't room for growth.
Sure.
I'm like, this is it, which is fine. But I'm at the time, I think 47. So I'm like, this can't be it.
Yeah.
And again, talking to Eric, he's like, this is a time when you're making a change and making differences and making the most money, not just kind of staying stagnant. And so I got this opportunity to go work for a promoter who was a hot local, small company, but really passionate and really and I knew of him just because he had brought shows to the arena, and just kind of really promised me the world, great money, and just something different. And in the industry, obviously I wanted to continue my path within, the music industry. So I was there. So I left, and it was the hardest decision. And I still walk into the arena and I get teary-eyed just because that was my family. I spent more time with them than I did with my own family, my kids. And I didn't have kids when I started there. I remember having to tell Eric I was pregnant, and I was so scared. I was more scared to tell Eric that I was pregnant than my mom, because I'm like, how am I going to do this job with a baby and pregnant? I was literally 60 pounds over. I gained a lot of weight when I was pregnant. It was awesome. Walking around that arena, just Jennifer Strum will tell you, she was a mean pregnant woman. I was just screaming at all the photographers, get out of my way. I was large and in charge. And but so I didn't have kids when I started working there. It was my entire life. So that was the hardest decision I ever made, was to leave, because there was really no reason for me to leave.
Sure.
Except I wanted growth. I wanted, it was kind of,
and a new challenge.
It wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
I wasn't challenged, so I got this opportunity, and they, salary was amazing, benefits, everything. So I figured that was the next step. And I was there for a year, and I learned probably more there in a year than I had.
You stretch those learning muscles, right?
Yeah. In the last 5 years at the venue, because I was just kind of doing my job with my eyes closed that I have been doing for so many years. But then the pandemic hit, and I was furloughed, and 3 months later, just completely laid off, and I freaking
and
spiraled.
First, like you said, for the first time in your life, right? You know, you're just kind of like, I don't know
What
who I am
yeah.
or what I'm.
What,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Without my job, like, and like I said, I make it a point to have my friends, have my family go out, but that's who I was.
the core.
Yeah.
You're the core.
What,
of
who am I without this job? Like, I can't get my friends tickets. I can't, like, you know, like how stupid, you know, that, but that's just who you know, where your brain goes. Not that I think any of my friends are my friends because I get to, you know, but that's what I liked
So
and
much a
enjoyed
part
doing.
of your personality.
It
too,
was
that
such a
you're
part of
like,
everything I
what
did.
if you take that away? I mean, of course we have so much left, but it was the first instinct is
This
like,
wasn't a job.
people know me as this, and when you remove
Liz
it,
from the
what
arenas.
is it? Yeah, exactly.
I
So
still, like, I'll say, oh, I'm at UTA, but I was at the arena for 18 and a half years.
Yeah, I
Like,
do
that's
the same
such a
thing, yeah.
big part of my
Sure.
life. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a piece of me. And I love the heat, like, so passionate. Like, I have 3 championship rings. How lucky am I? You know,
Yeah.
my kids used to go to games. It was everything. And then the concerts, and I was, you know, I actually, it was a tough year. And I'll leave it at that. But, you know, I learned so much, and then all of a sudden it was just taken away from me. And then I started, not only was I dealing with the fact that I wasn't working and the whole world had shut down, and what the hell am I doing now? Who am I? And what's going to come out of this? Like, how are we going to come out of this on the other end? But it was like, damn, if I hadn't left the arena, maybe I would have still had a job.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was second guessing myself. And, you know, my husband had his own business. So I've always been the steady, you know, breadwinner, for lack of a better word. And the insurance, you know, was through me. And so I was always that person. And now it's like, if I, you know, I took this risk, and now it kind of maybe didn't pay off. You know, thankfully, my support system is just beyond, and I'm so blessed. And my husband and my friends, and they just never let me like sink too low. And literally friggin' riding bike during the pandemic and going to the beach and looking at the water and just forcing me just to. And at the end of the day, as much as I was struggling mentally, I knew a piece of me, and it might sound like BS, but I swear I knew something else is gonna come out of this. And it was Michael's senior year, and I'm like, I would have never gotten this opportunity to be home with my family.
Yeah.
And as crazy as it seems, people are like getting divorced and I hate my spouse. We loved being at home together.
Yeah.
It give you that chance to reconnect.
Yeah. And when else were we going to get that opportunity?
Not in this business.
I would have never stopped working. Yeah. I couldn't afford to. I can't afford to stop working now until I freaking retire. Like I tell my boss now, I'm like, by the way, I'm gonna retire from here. I'm not looking to make any more changes. You're stuck with me. So,
right.
So yeah, so when would I have gotten that opportunity my son's senior year to be able to, you know, their school did a fantastic job. It was a private school, but they did an amazing job of like keeping them, you know, yeah, they had to homeschool for a little bit, but as soon as they were able to open up, they opened up and they did everything they could. And we were able to be there and experience that his senior year, which I wouldn't have if I was like working at the arena nights and weekends or working at this promoter's office. It was like crazy hours. So, you know, at the end of the day, it was a blessing in disguise. I mean, I hate to say that because it was such a horrible time for so many people. And I'm not going to lie, myself included. I mean, we took a huge hit. My husband's business still is not recovered. So I'm not saying it was like, oh my God, it was so amazing. But you have to just find the positive. And if not the positive, at least that hope that something positive is going to come out of it, if that makes sense, or have that feeling that something else is out there.
Or how can you turn it into something positive by looking for it? You know, like you said, you're going through this struggle, but it's like, okay, well, here's the cards I've been dealt. Right. But guess what? Now I can spend more time doing this. I can spend more time with family. I can, you know, whether it's even like learning to bake or work in your backyard. I became obsessed with fixing my backyard, which I cared nothing about. But I think it is like important of like, you know.
Did you say learning to vape?
No, learning to bake.
Okay.
I mean, some people probably
do your
some
thing.
people probably learn to vape too, but learning to bake. But
sorry, I was focusing on. I was spiraling.
So, but I do think, you know, that you were sort of forced into this. Like, here's what I've been. Here's where I'm at, and I think, you know, some people, and speaking for myself here too, are a little bit of creatures of habit, and so when you're forced out of that, you're like, whoa, like your whole world is shit.
I'm always like A, B, B, C.
Yeah.
Like this is what's supposed to happen. This is a progression. And it helped me. And this is something I tell my kids now because I see it in them. And that's who I used to be. And I don't like it. It's like you have to be flexible in life. You have to communicate what you're feeling, because it comes from your brain out of your mouth, it takes on a different life, and it's not as big as you think it is. I tell my kids that all the time. And then just be flexible.
Yeah.
Because if you can't be flexible in life, you're gonna have a really hard time at it. And I'm still learning that, and I'm still, trying to figure it out as I go, and not be so like set in my ways, because life is gonna throw all kinds of shit your way, right? And no one's getting through it unscathed.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to have that right mindset to be able to get through it and know that there's gonna be something better on the other side. And not necessarily just because that's what's going to happen, but because you have to believe that you're going to, if it's not there, you're going to make it happen for yourself.
Right.
So yeah, so just.
And oddly enough, and again, whether you're sidelined by the pandemic or by just an unexpected change at work, finding your way out of this is so important. So talk to me about, kind of your path out of this, and then, where you are today.
Well, again, I think it was just that not letting it overwhelm me.
Yeah.
I mean, I had very dark days. I second guessed myself.
You tried to do some freelance stuff too, and right.
And then I just decided, okay, what am I going to do? Just sit here and like be miserable? And that's not going to get me anywhere. So I don't want to have a year gap in my resume without anything. Even if it's the pandemic and this is what's happening. So right. I did start doing some freelance work. So I have a friend of mine who has a company called Mind Body Social. And I reached out to him, and he's starting to do like small events. They do like yoga events. They do,
Right.
And they work with like our local hospital, and it was a feel good program. And I reached out to him, and he's like, we need help, and we would love for you to help us. And so I started doing marketing for him and putting together like different marketing plans for their different events. And that kind of occupied my brain and also gave me something to put on paper. And then I never stopped applying for jobs. It's crazy, scary how many applications.
And what you think.
And nobody will get back to me.
Right? And
I know, that was me.
And you knew everybody in Miami, right? I mean, you felt for your job for 18 years at the air, you knew everybody. But you do it sometimes. Again, it's a tough window, but I've been there where I was out of work for 6 months for one period of my life.
Right.
I knew it. I had all these connections, but it just wasn't the right time. But then something did come my way.
And I did get a little bit bitter. I was like, all these fuckers that asked me for tickets, and I can't get a freaking call back from
can't cash in on.
I'm not gonna lie, I have a list.
Yeah.
I am not a petty
space.
person, but I have a list.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was crazy how many resumes. I even thought, I'm gonna get out of the industry. Like maybe this is my like opportunity to like leave this crazy world that like I applied at University of Miami for marketing, didn't even call me back. Just random places that I even had a stint for 4 months at Goodwill. I was at Goodwill when
like corporate, right.
Eddie, my current boss, called me. And then, but again, George is like, it's a job. I'm like, it can't be a job. Like for me, and this is just, it can't be a job. It has to be like what I'm going to do. Like it's going to be who I become. He's like, it doesn't have to be. It could just be a job until the next thing. I'm like, this is my new thing. So his cousin actually has worked in the non-for-profit industry her whole life, and she's a freaking rock star. I love her. And I'm like, I'm gonna talk to her. Her name's Anai. I'm gonna talk to her because I know she's gonna get me motivated to like work at Goodwill, and which is an amazing industry. I mean, I'm not nothing against Goodwill, but just not my industry, But so I had to kind of psych myself out a little bit. But I wanted it to be like my thing. So I sat we went out to brunch, and I'm like, so I think I'm gonna work at Goodwill. I got this opportunity. It's so the president of Goodwill used to be the publisher at the Miami Herald. So, I know him very well.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and then she's like, this is amazing. This is what you were meant to do. You've put in your time and those crazy hours at the arena. This is who you are now. You're getting older. You need a different pace of life pace. And this is how your time to give back. And I'm like, this is who I am now. I am Goodwill. I'm like, this is the second act. And then I'm all about like helping others. And now I'm going to be, a good person. And I'm not giving you tickets anymore, but give me your old clothes. And 3 months later, Eddie calls me. And, and I was like, I'm all in. And Dave Landsberg, he's like, Liz, we're so happy to have you, whatever. I'm like, this is my passion. This is like what I want to do. This is what I was meant to do. This is with the pandemic. And I'm all in. Like, I'm all in. 2 months later, I get a call from UTA. Like in my car, taking the call, like at the parking lot of Goodwill. Are you interested?
I'm all
like,
in asterisks.
Yeah, until I get a call from no, but I really did think I was all in.
Yeah,
like I'm done with
course.
the music industry.
You were all in.
And that's just my mindset. Like I want to do something. I want to do it 110%. I don't want to half-ass it or be like, okay, I'm going to work until I get something else. Like I had actually been offered other jobs, but the pay wasn't great. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to commit to something that I can't make work long-term.
Sure.
Right. And I'm not going to waste your time training me to then leave in 3 months. So when I started working at Goodwill, I mean, it's an amazing company. And I didn't even know half of what they did. So I immersed myself and, I was doing PR for them and I was doing marketing and things were kind of starting to open up and I was working with the board of directors and, I'm like, okay, I can see myself doing this. So it's not like I maybe I lied to myself. I didn't, intentionally lie to anybody else because really like I did want to make this like my thing and own it. But then, the pull of our crazy industry just,
pulls you back.
And pulls you back. Well, hey, we are just about out of time here today, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface of your adventures. But before we let you go, I want to hit you with our fast five. It's just 5 quick questions, just looking for your instant short response.
I thought I had escaped.
How about what was your very first concert?
Ooh, my first concert. I want to say it was Debbie Gibson.
Oh, nice. How about a favorite concert? Do you have a favorite concert of all time? You
know what? Somebody asked me that yesterday. I actually do not. I have favorite concerts: Coldplay, Adele, Taylor, but not U2 with a heart. Like after 9/11, like there's just so many amazing shows that I got to watch. Pink, Panic at the Disco, like.
All right, describe Miami in one word.
Crazy.
What's your favorite beach that's not in Miami?
Probably Siesta Key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's beautiful.
Last question for you. You get your own reality TV show, The Liz Show. Cameras follow you all around. What's the theme song? What's the song that plays over the opening credits to the song that's all about you and your life?
Oh God, that's a tough one. It's like, what's my Bravo line if I'm a Real Housewife? Thought about that, but I've never honed in on one. The Pink song. Now I can't think of the name of it. I'm still a rock star. I want.
So what?
So what? Yeah.
So what? Yeah.
I love it. Liz, where can people find you? Where can people follow along with your adventures or reach out or any of that good stuff? Anything you want to plug?
No, I mean, I live out loud. I know that sounds tacky and stupid and cheesy, but that's the truth. I mean, what you see is what you get with me. Follow me on Instagram. I am Liz Rock, and that's who I am. And I share my personal stuff. I share my work stuff. I share happy stuff. I share sad stuff.
Hashtags over everything.
I love a good hashtag. They tell a story.
They tell a
yes,
story.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, for good, bad or ugly, some of my friends are like, "You're ridiculous," and my husband's like, "You're using my likeliness without my permission." I don't care. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks,
getting
guys.
up early this morning,
Yeah.
and truly loved talking with you and hearing about your stories. Love your openness. Yeah,
I love you guys. I love this
Yeah,
conversation.
love you too.
I actually got teary-eyed a few times today. Yeah, man.
I'm an emotional sucker.
Yeah. Well, hey, and a big thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do appreciate your 5-star reviews. It helps others find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Venue Marketing Conference, a marketing conference that brings together diversified event and venue professionals to cultivate education, collaboration, and innovation for the growing sports and live entertainment industry. Find out more at eventvenuemarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.